What's going on, everybody? Today's video is going to be a little different. I have to tell you a story that has restored my faith in humanity, and to give you a little bit of backdrop about where this is going to come from. My wife and I, our daughter, was expecting a beautiful baby girl and our first grandbaby. And so we had planned to come to Florida for about, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, a month. Turns out it's only 2 weeks. We're actually leaving Florida tomorrow. I didn't get half the things done I wanted to do here while I was here, but that's okay. But to tell you kind of the backdrop of that, we were supposed to leave on a Friday, and we got the call Wednesday afternoon, actually Wednesday noonish, sometime Wednesday afternoon, that she was going to the hospital and we needed to get down there. I still wasn't finished with Mud Cricket, and I just kind of threw everything together, and my wife and I hauled ass and headed down here. So this story is of what happened in the interim of all of that. My wife and I were super excited to become grandparents, as our daughter was expecting her first child on March 3rd. My wife and I made plans to drive from New Jersey to Florida on Friday, February 24th. Well, I thought this would be a great time to unveil Mud Cricket, the Baja bug that I've been building for 5 years, and to bring it with us. I spent several weeks getting it finished and ready for the trip. I planned to flat tow it on the tow bar the entire 1,100 miles and picked up the license plates on Tuesday of that same week that we planned to leave. So our daughter called late Wednesday afternoon and said she was going to the hospital and not to worry. And well, you can't tell my wife not to worry, because that's the trigger for her to go into panic mode. So she was packed and ready to go within 45 minutes. I, however, was still finished packing the front wheel bearings on the Baja to make sure it would make the trip safely. And that's one of the reasons I didn't finish that last video, because of that incident. So at any rate, I hooked up the Baja to the truck with the tow bar, and we headed south just after sunset. We stopped a couple of times before we made it too far to ensure the bearings were running cool and had no issues, and continued our journey. I continued to look in the side mirrors often, and just as I looked into the left side mirror, the truck jolted. And it was just in time for me to see some faint sparks behind the Baja. I immediately pulled over to the shoulder and I checked the Baja, thinking that I had just lost one of the jerry cans mounted on the sidebars. And it was way worse than I thought. I noticed that both jerry cans were still tightly fastened to the car, but the driver's side axle, along with both Porsche 930 CV joints and the stub on the flange axle, were gone. Yes, I lost the entire dog bone and the stub axle. Well, piece of the stub axle, the flange part, was gone. So basically we were dead in the water, and the only thing stopping the rear wheel from falling off was the rear brake caliper and the rotor. I disconnected the Baja and I told the wife to go without me, and said that I would meet her when I could. She was beyond upset, and rightfully so, because I'm a selfish person, because I had to have the Baja with us, right? So it just made sense to me. So anyway, she yelled at me to get a tow truck, and we needed to get back on the road right away. So I called the closest company on a map search, as we were in Dumfries, Virginia. So my first call, I go into the whole story and explain that my wife and I are on our way to Florida for the birth of our first grandbaby, that we need to get back on the road as soon as possible so we didn't miss it. I'm sure my voice was cracking, as I was pretty emotional. And he says he couldn't help us, but he gave me a couple of phone numbers, and he said his lot was full, and which is all well and good. So he didn't have the room in the lot. I called both numbers which he gave me. I got no answer at either one of those numbers, and I continued to call 6 more towing services to which none of them would help me. For one reason or another, a couple of them were impound lot. They're like, we don't do recovery, we're only impound. So anyway, that's that. No one helped me, and so now I'm completely distraught, I guess, for the lack of a better term. So each call took about 3 minutes as I explained our predicament to each one. And meanwhile, my wife is beyond upset, sternly reminding me that we had to get going the entire time while she hangs out the window of the truck. So right after my last call, my phone rang, and it was the first place that I had called. The guy called me back, and he asked if we had found anybody. And I told him, I said, not yet, but I still had a few more to call and try. So he told me to relax, calm down. He's like, I'll be there in 20 minutes. It was the longest 20 minutes of our lives, even though he was there in 10 minutes. When he arrived, he asked where in Florida we were going. I told him we're going to Newport Richie, and he said, man, it's a small world. He's like, I just bought retirement property in Hudson, Florida, which is just north of us, like a 15, 20-minute drive, if that. So we made small talk for like maybe 30, 45 seconds. He handed me a business card, and he says, you guys need to get back on the road. Don't worry about anything. I'll take care of everything. He's like, here's my card. The number I text you from, or the number I called you from, is my personal cell, and please let me know when you guys get there so I know you guys made it safe. I instantly started crying and gave him a big hug. I couldn't thank him enough. And I got in the truck and we started going. And shortly after that, my wife says, or I asked him, I said, do you want my credit card number or anything? And he says, don't worry about any of that. He's like, you guys need to get to your daughter. He's like, you guys go. Don't worry about the car. I'll take care of everything. So again, I gave him a hug. I cried, and I got in the truck, and the wife and I left. So shortly after that, my wife asked me if I'd ever see the car again, and I hadn't really thought of that, but at the time, at that point, it didn't really matter to me. As long as I made it here on time, I was okay with that. So we did make it to Florida on time. We made it at 2:30 in the afternoon. And at 5:38 that evening, our daughter gave birth to the most beautiful baby girl, whose name is Rosalie Marie Sereseroz. I'll post a photo here. So I text the record driver a photo of the baby, and I let him know that we made it on time, we made it safe, and he congratulated us. He told me again, don't worry about the Baja. He's like, I made some room in the yard. It's covered, from prying eyes. Nobody can see it. And, all was well. So I told him I'd try to get up there as soon as possible. And he said, it's okay. Take your time. Be safe. Enjoy your time with the family and the new grandbaby. But that wasn't soon enough for me. I had to, after the baby was born, most of my concerns, now my focus is on the Baja. So the following morning, I called U-Haul to secure an auto transport. That was like $430. Not that I really had it to spend. I didn't have much money to spend, but I had to get the Baja out of there, as it's costing me every day. It's more and more, I think it was like $60 a day or something. So I figured the sooner I get it out of there, the cheaper off I'd be. So I called my buddy Eric, and I said, hey man, I need a co-pilot, go with me to Virginia to pick up the Baja. So he asked me if I had gotten a trailer, and I said, well, I got one, from U-Haul. I didn't get it yet, but I do. They have one waiting for me. And he's like, oh, dude, he's like, let me call Matt and see if we can use his trailer. And this way it doesn't cost you squat, So I said, okay, cool. Well, we got the trailer from Matt. And Matt, if you're watching this, thank you so much, man. I texted the record driver and asked him if they were open on the weekends. And he was like, no, we're not open on the weekends. And I told him, I said, well, I have a trailer. I got a trailer for the weekend, but I have to have it back by Monday. And he was like, yeah, we're not open on the weekends. So I'm like, well, shit. So now I got to wait. I mean, I can still use the trailer, but I was in a hurry to get there. So about 10 minutes later, the guy texts, the record driver texts me, and he says, yeah, just give me a call when you're like 30 minutes out, and I'll make sure somebody's here to let you in. So I was like, awesome, man, thank you so much. And Eric and I hit the road that night, and shortly before we arrived, I called him, and or text him rather, and asked him what his drink of choice was. So Eric and I stopped at a gas station, not far away from Dumfries, Virginia. Actually, I think it was in Dumfries. And I picked him up his order, Said it was underneath the tarp.
You have reached your destination.
So we just got the croppers to pick up the bug, and
long ride.
Well, we'll see how this goes.
Did you get a picture?
Oh, there she be. Poor thing. Poor thing.
So did you have to hear from it all the way down there to Florida? From the wife?
She did. So upon arrival to Cropper's Towing, we met Jeff Cox, the man that saved my ass a few nights before. I can't thank him enough for what he did for my wife and myself that night. He had the Baja just behind the gate and ready to go, and it didn't take long for us to get her on the trailer and strapped down. Afterwards, I grabbed the peace offering and went into the office to pay the bill and to thank him for what would have probably been the 30th time. His wife was also there, and I got to share Rosalie's photos with both of them. We chatted for quite some time about the Baja, Florida bars, restaurants, boating, and things in general that we had in common. And I asked him what I owed him. Sorry, I still get emotional. He said I don't owe him a damn thing. And I instantly choked up, as I am now. And I tried to give him some money. He wouldn't take it. And I gave him a hug and thanked him again for everything that he has done. And says he still has to sleep at night and went through similar issues with the birth of their first grandchild a few months prior. I am truly humbled and blessed to have great friends and meet new friends. And I'm surely I'll see Jeff again, as I don't really need a good reason to come home to Florida, but getting to hang out with him would be a great reason in my book. I'm also looking forward to seeing him and his wife again, and they're truly good-hearted people. And I wanted to share this story to let everybody know that there are good people out there, and my faith in humanity is kind of restored at the moment. So Jeff, if you're watching this, man, I greatly appreciate everything that you've done for me and my wife. Shit.
It's so overcrowded. Yeah. You gotta put the people out. Yeah.